Resolving trade disputes is one of the core functions of the World Trade Organization, or WTO. Its appellate body, known as the crown jewel of the WTO, is a 7-member panel of experts charged with judging trade disputes worth billions of dollars. But the body has been crippled since 2019 because of US efforts to block the appointment of new members. In November 2020, the last remaining member of the appellate body ended her term, bringing the total number of experts to 0. Her name is Zhao Hong from China. What has happened to the trade dispute mechanism? What's been the impact on the international trade regime, and what does the future look like? I'm pleased to sit down with Zhao Hong, former member of the appellate body and the second Chinese woman to serve in this capacity. Welcome, Professor Zhao. You left your job as a member of the appellate body of the World Trade Organization on November the 30th, 2020, and you gave a farewell speech in which you said you didn't join the appellate body in its heyday, and it was painful to witness the attrition of the appellate body members until it was unable to work. How did you feel that day you left that job, and how different it was when you arrived on this job 4 years prior to that?
Oh, it's indeed very sad the day I left the appellate body, as it is an organization that has been successfully operated for 25 years, with 14 cases in hand and cannot be operated anymore. No cases can be heard at the second stage. But personally, I also feel relieved. As the last chair, I sitting there, as the last sitting member, there's a huge pressure on me. So I feel until I work the last day of my contract, I honored my commitment to the WTO members, and I didn't shy away from the duty of the last sitting member and delivered the farewell speech, responding comprehensively to the major concerns of WTO members on the appellate body.
Of course, the day when you arrived on this job, it was a completely different picture, and I'm sure you had different expectations. How different were these two kinds of feelings?
Oh, it's very different. The inauguration day of my arrival is 2 new members swear in. All the WTO members, the representatives, ambassadors, the DG, all the DDG arrive, and it is a big gathering. It's a bit festive, and the celebration day of the appellate body coming in full force. So nobody could imagine that it would be ended like this in 4 years' time.
Yeah, how would you describe your 4 years as a member of the appellate body? How was life in and out of the center of William Robert in Geneva?
Well, it's the second time I work at the WTO. This time it is quite different from my first job as the Minister Counselor leading the legal team for the permanent mission of China at the WTO. This time it's a bit like it is a ivory tower. It is a very lonely journey. First of all, it is a privilege and honor serving the WTO members on their disputes at the second stage as the final resort for them on legal matters. But then the time I'm there are plenty of appeals. So we are never lack of work, extensive reading, and the legal issues usually quite controversial and sensitive. There's no small things in the dispute for a member who bring their complaints to you. It is very demanding on the time. So I usually spend all the weekends, not only daytime but weekends, working there. And there are always hard issues for you to decide. Research, reflection, reading, and it is most of the job. And basically, you do not have the chance to communicate to others, and you cannot go to parties, receptions, so basically, you only talk with your colleagues in the conference room. I even don't communicate with the lawyers. It is purely from my personal capacity in how to interpreting the treaty provisions.
Mm-hmm. I understand you worked on some 20 cases of trade disputes brought up by WTO members, and altogether you worked 4 years. Basically, it's kind of a judge, right? You're kind of a judge of the Supreme Court of arbitration within the world trading system. How did you retain your objectivity coming from China, one of the biggest player, I would say, one of the biggest players in international trade, often involved, with many of these trade WTO members on the one hand. Now, on the other hand, you have to be impartial, absolutely impartial. You said you don't communicate with people even so that you don't get influenced by whatever pressure and interest or influence. How do you manage to do that?
Well, you have a very good point. Maintaining impartial and independent, be objective in interpreting the legal provisions is the basic requirement for any international adjudicators in the dispute settlement. So for me, appellate body says any member coming into the appellate body, they throw away their passport. So nationality is never an issue. You basically was elected by 164, and you work for the 164. And the task is to defending the integrity of the institution, of the treaty, of the rule book. So it is not about any other member or any individual member or yourself or whatever. Forget about that. And for me, the methodology is to read the treaty, because that is the answer coming from. All the challenges, all the difficulties, you do not hold to yourself. We pass that difficulty to the team, to our colleagues. We exchange our views, we resolve ourselves. So there's a process, guarantee how you reach a conclusion. It is not a one person decide. So the division of the three, of course, has the final saying on what should be the decision. But there's exchange process. And the team also prepare the work. But then, there's a process, there's an institution, guarantee how you reach the final conclusion. So that is the way we guarantee the objectivity. And we treasure the credibility of the appellate body very much in our heart. It is not about anyone, any member. It is about the institution, the multilateral trading system, that is valuable for all. Because in my view, someone said the human civilization, the material achievement, like skyscrapers, the rocket, the spacemanship, But for me, what is most valuable is the invisible asset. That is the treaty, the rule book, and the international institutions that help people of this planet organize their cooperation with each other. That is the way to guarantee the peace and prosperity for all. That's the reason we treasure the multilateral trading system, and they would like to maintain the integrity of the rule book, honor the obligations and rights of every member in that treaty. And that is the way we deal with their dispute.
Each case has to be judged by at least 3 panel members, but for the last year, for reasons that we all know, you were the only member that was able to sit on that panel. Basically, the system was paralyzed for a year, and now, because of these vacancies, it is still not possible for any such cases to be settled in the appellate body. Help us understand exactly what happened to this appellate body. How did we get here?
Well, the story could be very long. The complaints, the last year, totally different from the previous 3 years, which I was fully occupied in handling the cases. The last year it is below the quorum, while I'm alone, I have to spend the time studying what is the cause that happened with the appellate body, that the dispute settlement itself become a dispute, and how can we get out of this dispute, how to resolve it. So that is my task. And also there are other things, you can have consultations with ambassadors. And so my understanding is that there are complaints to the system, to the appellate body, to panel, but this is the complaints, or this complaint from perhaps even in the parliament of certain members. Those messages has been correctly transferred to the appellate body. As I said, we are in ivory tower. We do not touch the members, or do not talk. Try to avoid suspicions of conflict of interest. And if there's a complaint later on, the complaint is more in the beginning and later on speaks loudly. And it started from issues like, Rule 15, that member work a bit longer than their term expires, 90 days, that the decision cannot be made beyond 90 days. These are the procedure issues. I never believed that, these issues cannot be resolved. But later on, I think, I tried to see all the complaints during that time, and reading the negotiating history, try to understand. Until August 20-something, when I read a note published by the former USTR, Robert Lighthizer, his article he said, in his idea, that the most desirable dispute settlement should be, for example, one tier, commercial arbitration-like dispute settlement. So it is not the complaints that, the overreaching...
They want to get rid of the appellate body totally.
It is not the operation of the appellate body, the performance of it, but the
existence.
Per se. That is that is a shock. That is a big shock for me to understand what is the disparity, because the dispute settlement body is heavily divided, the two camps. There are 121 supporting selection process to be immediately restored, and the others always say no, and asking questions why the appellate body, do this and that, never gave a constructive proposal on how to reform it. So that moment, I understand the divide is really huge. And that also remind me the nature of the difference, which is not the operation, the performance, but the existence. Does that mounting to amendment of the treaty? And if it is mounting to amendment of the treaty, what are the procedures should be taken? That is a very serious steps taken. How to convey that messages properly. So 3.5 years, the selection process has been systematically blocked down.
Yeah.
That's very sad.
I've been talking to Professor Zhao Hong, a former member to the appellate body of the World Trade Organization. We'll take a short break and we'll be back right after this. Stay with me.
Making sense of the overwhelming wave of information means cutting through the noise to shine a light on the heart of the story and making room for new perspectives. True understanding means the ability to see events from more than one side. I'm Liu Xin, and this is The Point.
Clearly, under the Trump administration, he had a totally different view of the multilateral trading system, of multilateralism. He had a different view about how trade should be conducted, not freely, but more. He was talking about more fair trade in his definition. Anyway, he's now gone for the time being. Damage has been done to the multilateral trading system. What system or what lessons do you think can be learned from that chaotic 4 years?
Well, I think through that process, members, the WTO members, entire members, may realize the multilateral trading system should not be taken for granted. Rule of law shall not be taken for granted. Treasure the institution, treasure multilateral trading system, which is the foundation for the current peace and prosperity, is first and foremost to everyone, to everyone's interest on this planet. The current institution has been established with a vision by the leaders at the time more than 75 years ago. I remember the Atlantic Charter, Article 8. When I teach to students, I quote that because that provision requires to treat even the defeated equal opportunity to access to raw material, to world market of raw materials. That is in the spirit of non-discrimination. That is very impressive. That is a vision of the framers of the current institution. And the current institution is coming out of, at the cost of 40 million lives on the conservative basis estimation. So this is not after the Second World War. And each development of international law, each breakthrough is coming at the cost of, the heavy damages of a war. So I won't give you the history of international law. There can be a whole lecture. But treasure the current institution. Treasure the multilateral trading system. It is not coming for granted. That is the best way we can have. That is the best common good, public good of the world. It benefits everyone. So if this continues, I do not see a better future, a promising future. So come to have confidence and restore the institution is a priority for every government.
What about reforms? People are saying it's not good enough. It's not good anymore. 75 years have passed. Things have changed. How urgent is it to reform? Is it able to be reformed to a way that adapt to the times?
I think they are able. For me, it is political wills. If there are political wills, everything could be achieved. If everyone recognizes this public good is really essential, really lifeblood for everyone, there's a way to come into compromises, take consideration of others. Not only what you demand, but what is the concern to others. So that of the shared future. That is the spirit of collaboration. We are not enemies. We are friends. We are trading family. We belong to the same village, the Earth village. There are many challenges, climate change and many things. We need to fix them all together with hand in hand. For me, with the strong political will, we can achieve everything. I believe so. And I think in the leadership of Dr. Okonji Iweala, we may be able to do so. You should not only consider the 21st century issue, the new issue, but also take into account the old issue, the Doha issues, not only the subsidy to industry products, but the domestic support to agriculture. I mean, there should be a grand bargain, put every demand on the table and let people work on it.
Some people are saying, though, China is talking of respecting international rule of law, but China has not done so. And there have been, a lot of accusations of China not respecting its commitment as a WTO member, that China not protecting the IP rights of its international counterparts, of China dumping products. So in that sense, how do you look at China's conduct so far, especially when we're approaching 20 years of China's accession to the World Trade Organization? Could China have done a different and better job looking back?
Well, that's a very good question. As you know, I am not responsible, or I may not be in a very good position assessing the current compliance of China, as I'm not part of the team and I'm focusing myself totally on the dispute settlement at the second stage. But I am a person take a lead in the compliance effort of China after acceding to the WTO. I noticed there are complaints or whoever said that it is not enough what China had done in making compliance or making fulfilling its commitment for accession. I won't say too much, but I can give you an example how I work with the amendment of foreign trade law, because I'm the person working on that project. After acceding to the World Trade Organization, China committed liberalizing the trade regime, the trading rights, allow every individual's enterprises having the right to do trade upon registration, not approval anymore. That is a big step, liberalizing the trade regime. China started to do that shortly after the accession, already on regional basis, on experimental basis. But the legal framework, even the ordinances, the lowest level of rules has been amended. But the foreign trade law, which was enacted 1994, has not been touched. It is still approval system. That is a provision which is the basis for the the lower level ranking of rules. So the task become whether you will change that foreign trade law. But if you change the law, you do not mention just one piece of provision.
Right.
For that purpose, it is a huge project. But we take the courage to do that huge project. And we managed ourselves to work day and night and coordinating many ministries, many industries to come into agreement with a new amended foreign trade law. And within 2.5 years, we succeeded completed all the legal process until the Parliament, the People's Congress, finally amended that foreign trade law. That is Foreign Trade Law 2004. July the 1st, that piece became effective. And that one, we accomplished our commitment half a year ahead of time. That is, almost, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. In that process, we compared the foreign trade laws of other trading partners, and we learned from them. So we want to have a best foreign trade law. That is what I regarded as a certain contribution to the legal system of my mother country. I remember very vividly, my son was very little at the time, he complained so much that I cannot be together with him. But that is something I have done. And if you challenge the sincerity of the early generations who lead that process, honor China's commitment and accession, I totally disagree. Maybe you can find people more competent than me or others to do better, but actually there is a sincerity for honoring our commitment. And actually that is the key that China could be so successful after exceeding the World Trade Organization. The taking off, the economic taking off, all coming after that. Because there's a rule of law, because the spirit respecting rule of law, because of the legal system has been compatible to the market economy, has been established. That is the reason, that is the key. So I cannot agree if you say, maybe in the beginning we didn't. But then with the time went on, nobody could be perfect. But one dispute brought against China at the dispute settlement body, when China loses a case, China honored that decision, settlement body. We have very good record of implementing the decisions by the dispute settlement body. That is also something I'm very familiar with. I'm working on that.
Yeah, I'm sure so many years you have been working with international trade of China, and later as the appellate body, you must have a lot of experience. But you said during your selection process for the member for the post of a member of the appellate body, you had to go through 40 interviews in about 13 days, but you said that to join the job in WTO Appellate Body is a great career as it's promoting world peace and the development of international rule of law. Looking back, how would you describe what you left behind? What marks have you made on this organization?
I think, of course, there are individual cases I can mark. But what I want to let you know is that the effort I brought in to improve the internal management of appellate body. You know, when I'm elected as the chair of the appellate body, I was shouldered with responsibility according to the working procedure to overseeing the daily operation of appellate body. That is a job of a duty of the chair. So I'm thinking, how can I oversee the daily operation? There isn't clearly defined relationship between the staff and the members. So how? What is the linkage? How you have a mechanism in place that you can oversee their job? So I actually drafted a guideline governing the business meetings of appellate body members. I am the chair, but I do not want to abuse my right. I take a lead in drafting the agenda of the meeting, encouraging people to put everything at the meeting. So it is a collective decision-making process. Make it transparent and democratic. That is something I think there's never a chair of appellate body had ever do that. That is something, I think that is also in the spirit of rule of law. I want the institution to be strong. Whoever is there, the institution will be respected and maintained and strengthened. So that is why so when I introduced my idea, the first day I was elected to all the staff, to all the appellate body members, I think they got a deep impression that I have a spirit of democracy and transparency. I want to strengthen the institution. I want everyone coming to have dispute with the appellate body have a trust with us, that we do not want to be mysterious. We want people to trust us.
To be able to know you and then trust you.
We have institution that is based on the rules. That is, how we make our decision.
Yeah.
So that is the way I think that's a contribution I do. So I feel that as the second women working from China, working at the appellate body, it is most terrible time of my entire professional life. And I did bear in my heart the interest of the entire 164 members. It is by the members and for the members. And it is the institution that matters most to me. And I have introduced the idea of, I think, rule of law into the daily operation of the appellate body working. There are many examples I can give, but I guess time do not allow me to go into details on the specific provisions or specific cases. I think I spend the time, I fully dedicated to it, and I feel most rewarding when I'm reading the DSB memo that not only complainants, but defendants and even third participants welcome our report, welcome our decision, which I presided in particular. That is the most rewarding moment of my life with the appellate body.
Thank you so much, Professor Zhao Hong, former member of the WTO Appellate Body.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.